Hello there, I'm the Common Sense Guy. Today we're actually going to be doing a video that's actually really close to my heart. The fact that I'm English, and as you can tell I'm quite proud of being English, to the point where I have tattoos of me being English. Now that doesn't mean that I'm some kind of racist or anything else like that. At one point, before all of this stuff, around about 15 years ago, well, not 15 years ago, round about, if I'm going to be honest, about 13 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, I went out and I got myself a couple of tattoos because I was actually proud of the country that I was in. I was proud of the integration that we were actually able to provide. I was proud of the way that we were trying to help people in other countries. I was proud of our heritage. I was proud of who we were. I suppose I could say I'm not proud of us how we are now, and how we won't even defend ourselves when somebody comes across and actually says they dislike the flag because it has roots in English nationalism. Your point being, sir, what's your point? Let's get into this video. The video in itself will probably be a shorter one than normal. I'm not going to be providing all links and everything. I just wanted to be like I was the other guy in the room. So instead of having the other guy that is going to do the rebuttal, I'm going to be doing the rebuttal. That being said, you're going to love this video.
I tear my heart open, I sew myself shut. My weakness is that I care too much, and my scars remind me that the past is real. I tear my heart open just to fail.
As you can see, Mr. Kiende hates the English flag. Now, this Mr. Kiende is actually Dr. Kiende. And yeah, he is a doctorate of Black Studies. Yes, over at Birmingham University. He's very, very proud to be talking about the imperialism, the racism, everything that's an ism that can be denigrated and horrible to England and Britain. But yet this system that oppresses black people and people of colour so highly has somehow managed to afford him a doctorate and a teaching position to spout this dribble. Yes, people are so oppressed. You are definitely evidence of that. Definitely evidence of that. Now, for the anecdotal bits and pieces out of the way, let's actually find out what this person actually has to say, shall we?
Please stop flying that terrible flag everywhere.
No. No, I will not. The reason why I will not is because you are in England. If you went to Italy, would you tell Italy to stop flying Italy's flag, even though it was part of fascism? Would you go to Germany and tell Germany to stop flying Germany's national flag, even though it was part of Nazism? Would you go to Spain? Do you get the idea? Do you get the idea? Just because one part of the historical facts of that country make it look bad on the country or make it look bad for that people, doesn't mean that is demographically correct for the rest of the people, and it doesn't mean that that is how the country is run today. But you know, let's pull up the past and try and make things better for us.
I cannot for the life of me see why our national flag should not be flown by a great majority of good, honest and decent people of this country, and I feel some people have an agenda to stop this. We shouldn't relinquish the St. George's Cross and be demonised in our patriotism for doing so.
There's a kind of arrogance that ignores what this flag has been used for.
What would that be, sir? You are trying to suggest, and you go on to suggest, I presume, that because certain ideologies have taken hold of the flag, that you can no longer fly the flag. I draw you to my earlier riposte, or should I say retort. The fact is that if you look at any country's history, you can find bad in that country's history. Why do you take the flag away from that country's history instead of actually letting the country run it? The reason why I suggest this is because I thought that we have to learn from our historical past. We have to learn from the mistakes that were made. And if you take away the flag, and if you take away these other bits and pieces that make us remember what's gone on in the past and how old the flag is and everything else like that, surely it's a case of you are doomed to repeat yourself in history, are you not?
And the history of actually its usage in this country. We remember the National Front flying the St. George's Cross.
So we have to remember the history of this flag, but remember, the National Front held this flag up high. Yes, and your point being, lots of things have been done forcefully by and for the country that they're supposed to be residing in. Doesn't mean that the country supports it, does it? Just because some people grab a flag and go, we're fighting for England, doesn't mean that they're actually fighting for England, does it? They're not part of the troops. They're not part of the ideology of the flag, are they? They're just people that live under it, the same as you live under it. If you don't like the flag, then move to another country. No, don't go home because I know you were born in this country, sir. But if you don't like the flag, move to a country that you do like the flag of. Please, please do.
And really, this flag has come to represent something like the Confederate flag in America.
How? How has St. George's flag, which is basically just run as our country's flag, that has never changed since its conception, the only things that have been added to it is to make the British flag, where we have every member of the United Kingdom's flag integrated into it to make the British flag. But yet, you're trying to compare it to a Confederation flag that is supposed to supposedly stand for the ideas of slavery and the ideals of that ilk. You're making a false equivalence. And again, the flag that was flown under the Confederacy may have been for the Confederacy, but it wasn't part of the United States. That's why they were actually separate. If you want any sort of historical facts on that one, you can go and talk to my good old friend Mad Dodge Productions about that one. He will sit there for hours and go through every single thing with you. And he will love it. Not so much sure that you would love it, because, you know, dealing with somebody that actually knows what they're talking about. But yeah, false equivalency there. Building up a tiny bit of a straw man there.
Where it's a very narrow, very white, very English nationalism. And if I see this flag on a pub, it means to me, don't go in. So
I'm sorry. The English flag means a white form of English nationalism. Now, I could go into the fact that, yes, okay, England is majority white, so that means majoritively that most English people are going to be white. We do realise that we would call you English. We do call you English. You are English. The idea of civic nationalism in itself, to be proud of the country you're in, doesn't mean that you're necessarily completely and utterly abhorrent to other people joining your country. You want your country's morals, you want your country's purpose to be put forward. You're suggesting that people that do that don't even look at race, are now some kind of racist because they are proud in their nation and how accommodating their nation has been to refugees, to migrants, to people that have been affected by war throughout history as well, mind you. Not just recently, but throughout history, and how many people we took in during the Second and First World War. But at the same time, you know, it's a case of it's rooted in history, it's rooted in slavery, it's rooted in imperialism. Just wow, you want to get rid of a flag because of historical events. That means every flag in the whole of the world should be begotten. It means we shouldn't have flags for countries at all then, doesn't it? I suppose we shouldn't have countries, actually, considering that all of them have historical misaccuracies where, you know, they went on a genocidal rampage at some point in their history. But, you know, context. Let's just focus on England, shall we? Because England are racist.
we can't just ignore the fact that this flag has been adopted by the far right, and that is why it is actually quite exclusive.
But do you not think that by allowing such a small minority of the country to take this flag off a large proportion of the country who feel very strongly that is their flag, I think it's very oppressive. It's quite insidious to take the flag off so many people. It didn't have any of those connotations beforehand.
Well, actually, did it?
I wanted to leave that bit in there because I thought that Callum, actually spoke that very, very articulately. was able to say that, look, you're actually oppressing the English people here. You're actually trying to take some form of culture away from them. In actual fact, you're actually depressing or oppressing their culture. You're actually taking away what makes them English. Can you imagine if the roles were reserved, the actual outrage of it? And in that instance, I would say outrage that's well deserved as well, by the way. But would you actually imagine the outrage that would actually stem from this if it was if the roles were reversed? Say, for instance, you wanted to take away the Jamaican flag, for instance. Say, for instance, you wanted to take away a couple of flags in Africa. What in the hell would you do if we were to try to take away the Turkey's flag, or if we were going to take away United Arab Emirates, or any of the other countries in the Middle East? What would you do if we were trying to do that, and we were trying to force our views onto them? What would you do? Would you classify that as being oppressive, oppressed, insidiously? I suppose you wouldn't, because, white men.
Did it not have any other connotations when they were flying this flag during the Crusades?
Oh, fuck off with the Crusades. The Crusades were actually there because, the fucking religion of peace actually took over 3/4 of Europe and only France and England were fucking left. But, the Crusades. Let's take away the English flag because of the Crusades. Any country that's ever fought in any fucking war, let's take away their country's flag, shall we? Let's do that. That's exactly what we should do. Lunacy. Fucking lunacy.
And going around through Muslim countries trying to convert them. Did Englishness not have these things when they were flying it, when they were trying to enslave my ancestors?
Trying to enslave your ancestors. What about when they freed your ancestors? Because, I'm sorry to say this to you, sir, but unfortunately, even people in the Middle East were using you as slaves, or your ancestors as slaves. In fact, people in the Middle East were actually using white people as slaves. What is your point? Does that mean that we should take away the flags of every other country that's ever been involved in slavery? Well, God fuck, that means every country should not have a flag then. Fuck me. Ridiculous again. What a point. These are people that the BBC actually put up to actually try to push this narrative about the English flag's been taken by the far right. Then fight for it back. Don't try and get rid of it and trying to put something else up, because all you're doing is making people more galvanised to protect the flag and go with those type of people. But no true Scotsman fallacy.
Did not have these connotations when it was flown around the colonies. There's a reason why the English flag has been picked up by the far right.
The reason why it was flown around the colonies is because they were colonies at that point in time. Does it make it right? No. Does it make it the fact that they were British colonies at that time, or actually English colonies? Yes. That's the reason why they were flown there. Jesus. Fuck. And you're an actual doctorate. Fuck me. No wonder why the fucking education system's dying.
It isn't just this tiny minority.
British cultural identity is not based on the Crusades. It's, in fact...
For some, it definitely is, actually.
No, it's not based on the Crusades. In fact, hardly anybody knows what the Crusades actually were. In fact, most people don't even know who was actually part of the Crusades. Especially the first one. But, come across with your demographic of lying, otherwise it falsifies your narrative, meaning that it falls apart. But, cut off the other boy because he's talking, which he has never done to you. Kind of shows you some sort of form of ignorance there, doesn't it?
I think this war against Islam, the war against... they're still there.
Oh my fucking God. The war against Islam is not there. If there was a war against Islam, then we wouldn't allow Muslim immigrants into the country. We do. The thing that people actually want is the fact of controlling the borders, to be able to decide who comes in and who comes out. And no, that doesn't mean that Muslim people can't come in or out. That doesn't mean that at all. It means that we want to check their background, to see if they're fucking jihadists, to see if they're going to blow up our country. Terrorist attacks. People always go, well, you're going to be racist because now you're going to be talking about Islam and how Islam is, unfortunately, at this moment in time, one of the highest forms of terrorism that is actually out there. Well, unfortunately, if the boot fucking fits, you've got to talk about the problems. Have you not? Or should we talk about terrorism and then talk about Irish terrorism? Should we go across and talk about Protestant fucking terrorism? Should we go across and talk about Catholic terrorism? Should we go across and actually talk about, I don't know, let's talk about Spanish terrorism? Is there any of that about? No? Oh, okay. Never mind then. Should we carry on?
The real question is, why do you feel so connected to this flag? I mean, it's just it's a flag.
Did you just say, why do you feel so connected to a flag? It's because it's our nation's symbol. That's the reasons why. It proves that the country that you are in is England, meaning the laws that govern it are English law. Well, not recently, not since the last 20 years, but generally the laws that govern England are written by the English people. And no, that doesn't mean white people. That means people that have taken up the nationality, like you. Well, I don't know if you have, but you get my point. You honestly do get my point. It's the fact that it's a symbol of the nation. Would you take away America's flag? Would you take away Greenland's flag? Would you take away the Togo's flag? How many flags are you going to take away? Because if you're going to take the English flag away because, oh, it's got links to the far right. Every flag has got links to bad stuff. In fact, Palestine's flag has got links to Hamas, who, as we all well know, Hamas is considered a terrorist organisation. Does that mean we should take away Palestine's flag? Ooh, controversial. Controversial. But you get my point. Turkey's got links to terrorism and actually forming a caliphate. Does that mean that we should take away Turkey's flag because of it? Because of how the extremism they have in the past? Should we take away Germany's flag because they had links to fucking Nazism in the past? Should we take Italy's flag away because of the idea of fascism? How deep did this rabbit hole have to fucking go until you actually realise that what you're doing is attacking a symbol? You're not actually attacking the problems that you think there is. But you know, the problems you think there is don't actually fucking exist anyway in the first place.
Of this flag, and you understand why it's so offensive to millions of people in this country. Just pick a new symbol. Why does it have to be this particular flag?
The reason why it has to be this flag, oh my fucking god, I can't believe I'm doing this towards somebody. But the reason why it has to be this flag is because it's our flag. Because it's our flag. If it offends people and millions of people in this country, they don't have to be here. They can go off to another country where the flag doesn't fucking offend them. Do you not think? And by the way, that Callum lad hasn't actually spoken over you once. He's shown you a hell of a lot more respect than you, being a doctorate, is giving him. You keep on cutting him off and speaking over him. I can't believe that you actually think that you're doing well on this. All you're doing is cutting the points that he's making off and trying to say that he's, or suggest, that he's racist for supporting the flag. He's not.
What would be your proposition of a new symbol then? Would you just ditch the England flag?
Well, I mean, I'm probably the worst person to ask. What is Britain?
Yes, you are the worst person to ask because you just dislike everything to do with the country that you're actually fucking in. But, you know, hey.
What is this idea of empire and...
Empire, we've come a long way since empire. I think this country is built now on inclusivity, freedom of speech, respect for the law.
I am actually quite surprised that I didn't turn around. I think I showed quite a lot of self-restraint.
So you're happy that you didn't turn around in that aspect? I think that he's absolutely correct. We're not built on empirism anymore. Empirism. Sorry. Emperor's New Clothes. I just think... Sorry. This is when anybody says empire. But we're not built on imperialism anymore. We're built on the idea of inclusivity. We understand that migration is important. And yes, it is important. I'm not just saying this because there's a camera in front of me. Migration is important. It adds to the culture. It adds to what we're doing. It adds to us. It makes us better people generally. But only when the migration is coming in is able to integrate into the culture that it is emigrating and assimilating to. Because otherwise, you have all the problems from the country that they've just run away from coming to the country that they've just come to. It really, really does that you're just so blinded by the past that you don't see the future. And the fact is that you are victimizing people that want to fly St. George's Cross. Because you know why? Because they're English. If you go to an England football game, it doesn't matter about your race anymore. It hasn't done for at least about 10 years if you go to an England game. It matters about your nationality, I'll give you that. That's the reason why they sometimes have fights with other people. But if you're English, and my point still stands on this, if you're English, it doesn't matter where you come from in England when you go and watch an England game. Doesn't matter what colour you are. Doesn't matter what religion you are. It matters if you're English and if you support the English football team at that point in time. Now, I'm using this as a pejorative to make sure that people can actually understand a comparison. Because you can draw from that, where you would say that footballers are hooligans and racists and things like that. And maybe they are, maybe they ain't. I don't know. I'm not here to defend them. But if you take that as a demographic, where the horriblest of people, so to speak, are the ones that are actually accepting people that are people of colour, that are of different faiths, that are from different regions, and they're being inclusive, then surely people that you wouldn't classify as racists, that you wouldn't classify as bigots, homophobes, and whatever other word you want to use, ism, surely that would be the case that the rest of the country would actually be more inclusive. And I think Callum actually hit the nail on the fucking head with this. It is a case that we are more inclusive. We are very, very good at being inclusive. And the idea of civic nationalism is very strong, including in myself. I like the idea of civic nationalism. I like the idea of having our culture still staying alive. I like the idea of our laws. I like the idea of our freedom of speech. I like the idea of our laws to do with William Wilberforce, you know, the person who actually abolished slavery and fought for it, to make sure things like that didn't actually happen around the rest of the world as well. Remember that Britain actually went around all of its colonies to make sure that it would actually stop slavery as well. Obviously, at that point in time, America was not part of the colonies. That's why we didn't go there. And the fact that we lost a massive civil war at that point as well. But anyway, the point is that you're just trying to take away the flag because you don't like the connotations that you have and that you perceive of the flag. Doesn't matter about what anybody else thinks, it matters what you think. And the thing is, that's the point of the left nowadays. That it's to do with their selfishness rather than the idea of other people. I'm going to be selfish, I'm going to do what I want to do, and people will either follow me or not follow me. Thing is though, when people follow you, they're following you under a false narrative themselves, because they are also as well doing it because they are being selfish. They're not looking at a bigger picture. And I think that's the difference between not the far right and not the far left, but right of politics and left of politics. I think that's the difference nowadays. I really honestly do. To the point where on Monday I think I'm going to do another political compass test. Because I do actually honestly feel that I have shifted to the right a little bit. Remembering last time I was a libertarian. So I think that would be a very, very interesting video to see actually. I'll go through my ideas and premise, and yes, it will be a long one. But I think it'll be worthwhile because I do feel that my political allegiances have actually shifted to the right a lot more. Right, that being said...
Accusations of empire and the Crusades to normal people sound frankly ridiculous.
To white people that might sound ridiculous, but to normal people that I know that sounds perfectly reasonable.
To the people that you know, you mean the bubble that you actually have? The bubble that you have, the friends that you have. Come talk to normal people in the street. They don't even give a fuck about the imperialism. They don't give a fuck about the history. They wouldn't know if they got enough money to pay for the fucking groceries. They don't give a shit about history. Not in the aspect of what you're meaning. They understand the points of slavery and history and what we should and what we shouldn't do. Yeah, sure. I'm not going to dispute that. But they don't go around going, oh yes, we were imperialisms and we had armies and we hold colonies and by God, wasn't that great? Nobody even thinks like that. I can't believe that you are the actual person that is producing this. And you're a doctor and you're a teacher. Fuck!
Well, actually, I don't accept that things have got massively better. And actually, I think this kind of Britishness, Englishness identity is part of that problem.
I actually really do think that the reasons why they're producing things like this is to shame people into the idea of thinking that being proud of your nation is a bad thing. Being proud of your nation is completely abhorrently to the far right. And the point is, no, it's not. The fact is that nations need borders. Borders need nations. Nations need governments. I don't know whether you understand this. If you're proud of your nation, then you're proud of the country that you're in. That means you're proud of the people that are in your country. I don't I don't see how you can be so prejudiced towards people, scream and shout that you're being oppressed, but yet you're the one now doing the oppressing. You're literally shouting and screaming for a national symbol to go because you're offended by the national symbol. Meaning that the majority of people, and I'm including people from other ethnic backgrounds as well, it's not just white people that support the flag. But your perceptions and your bubbles provide only rose-tinted fucking glasses, don't they? Everything that you think is true and anybody else thinks is false. But let's carry on.
Probably be an ethnic minority. It probably surprised me a bit. But I don't know.
You want to turn around?
Yeah, right.
Nice to meet you.
And you got the flag on as well?
Yes, yeah.
I would just like to say that when he got up and he shook the person's hand, it was the white guy that extended his hand first. Now, I'm not trying to say, oh, this is good, this is bad, or anything else like that. I'm just trying to show you the levels of body language. The fact is that the white guy was the first one to offer his hand. The white guy was the first one to say, how you doing, and everything else like that, blah, blah, blah. And the thing is, they ended up having a laugh and a joke. Surely that is what you have to take away from today. The fact is that it doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter where you've come from in the past. It matters what's happening now. It matters what's happening right this second. And the thing is, as my good friend Memes would say, we have more that keeps us together, more in common than what we have that divides us. Now, with that being said, rule Britannia, Britannia rule the waves.